Hi, my name is Ayser Salman. I'm the author of The Wrong End of the Table, a mostly comic memoir of a Muslim Arab American woman just trying to fit in. Did I get that right? And this is my Mr. Media interview.
Imagine writing the story of your life and constantly having to footnote it, literally, because your mother doesn't approve of the details you reveal and the way you retell certain stories. Next, imagine having to find a way to write about your life in a way that strangers who fear people that look, sound, and pray like you will find engaging and endearing. Finally, imagine that you succeed in all of these things because you have a voice and writing style that is at once funny and charming, disarming and delightful. All of that is true of Ayser Salman's new book, The Wrong End of the Table, a mostly comic memoir of a Muslim Arab-American woman just trying to fit in. It delivers the goods exactly as promised in the title, and I swear, sorry Mama Salman, I couldn't put it down. A really good book takes you to a place you've never been. Well, for most Americans, that might be the everyday life and times of a Muslim Arab American woman born in Iraq and raised from the age of 2 in the United States. Ayser Salman was educated in Lexington, Kentucky and Saudi Arabia, and I'm not kidding, and eventually made a career in Hollywood as a film editor, writer, and producer for Universal Pictures, Miramax Films, Disney, The Weinstein Company, and FX. And no, Harvey Weinstein doesn't fit into any of these stories. Ayser Salman, welcome to Mr. Media.
Thank you. And thank you for the last sentence preceding that being about Harvey Weinstein.
It's a comic memoir, right? We got to get all the comedy in we can.
Exactly.
Leave out, yeah. I just want to make it clear at the top that that is not going to be something we're going to waste any time on. So, in case it wasn't clear at this point from the introduction, I really enjoyed your book, and I can't wait to see it as adapted as a sitcom from ABC or Netflix or somebody else who's smart about these things.
Well, thank you. That's the highest form of praise.
Well,
that would be awesome.
Well, a movie would probably be the highest form of praise.
Well, these days, not so much. I mean, TV is just as, if not more, because you're able to spend time with the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just, we reached a certain point in the book where you move out of being in college, high school and college and such. And I thought, I want to stay with this for about 10 more years because the stories were just so engaging. It was just a lot of fun to read. And I don't want to say I don't know anyone like you because that's not true. My roommates, my freshman year of college, were first semester was a guy from Iran. Second semester was another guy from Iran. Ali, first semester, and Kayvon, the second semester. So this is not entirely alien to me, but I know that it is for a lot of people. And it's like, oh, it's like, look, celebrities are just like us. It's like, oh, Ayser is just like everyone else. Well, duh,
That's going to be my tagline. I'm just like you.
Well, so I described a little bit of your background, but maybe before we go any further, talk a little bit about where you were born, where you grew up, and a little bit about your parents, because they play a big part in the story.
Yes, so I was born in Baghdad, and where the Saddam Hussein came from. And when I was 3, we decided, we were like, things are starting to act up around there. So let's just, my dad had gone to college in at Michigan. And so he was, he knew about, he had, sorry, I forgot to turn my email off and an email just came through. Can you hear those beeps?
No.
Okay, cool. Okay, then never mind. So I feel like suddenly just lost a train of thought. Just randomly seemed like a crazy.
Went to school
my
in
dad.
Michigan?
So we decided to come. My dad had been educated in America, and so we thought, let's both basically. And it was supposed to be actually, it's not, I don't think I specified so much in the book, but I think I did. It was supposed to be a sabbatical. and we got to Ohio, and my parents just loved it so much, and they thought, well, we're not going to go back, and so that obviously caused some problems with the government. But I grew up we started in Ohio. I grew up in Kentucky. I went to school. Then we moved to Saudi Arabia because my parents got jobs there. They wanted to educate us. They wanted us to be back in touch with our culture. And then so we stayed there, and obviously this was Saudi Arabia before the Iraq War, so things are different, but still Saudi Arabia. And then came back to the States. So it was basically going from this my English was or Arabic was my first language, learning coming from this country that I thought was this comfortable desert basically, and coming to this, like, we always moved in the middle of the winter. If for some reason, every time we went anywhere, and apparently it's not just me. A lot of Arabs do that. I don't know why, maybe because flights are cheaper. But so, imagine I'm this, in my cozy home, and then I'm ripped out and brought to America. And, people thought I spoke funny, but I was, I couldn't even speak English. And then getting used to that, and then my parents saying, well, we're going to go to Saudi Arabia now, where you're going to be in an English speaking school, but it's still kind of an adjustment. So it was just constantly like feeling like I was, the new kid, becoming a chameleon. And I feel like I've over answered your question and didn't answer. I answered questions that you haven't even asked.
Well, what did your dad do?
They're both pharmacists,
Oh,
pharmacologists.
both. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. He was her professor in college. So they both have PhDs, and they're both, when you call them, if I call them now with a headache, they'll both get out a book and just say, okay, hold on, let me see the symptoms. I'm like, just tell me, do I need to take 2 Advil or 4? It's that kind of thing. So it's a blessing and sometimes a curse, like with any family. But
and your parents are still with us.
Yes.
With
yes.
you, yeah.
Yes.
With us. I feel like part of the family after
They're
reading
with you,
the book.
right? Yeah. Thought you had it. No, kidding.
I'm imagining the footnoted version of this interview with dropping in notes from your mother at certain points.
Yeah. You were great, but you sort of rambled for a little bit, and maybe stay on point. I've had notes like that before where I've done podcasts, and she said, it's really great. I'm really proud of you. You kind of talk a lot. I mean, the good thing is you come back around, but you just go off on these tangents. And my sister has told me perhaps take a sip or two of water just to shut up, i.e. slow down. So I'm going to take both of their advice right now.
Oh, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. So your dad does seem very comfortable just picking up and moving the family during the course of the story, because you do move a lot. And it was kind of interesting. One of the first things that struck me was when you went from Ohio, like in the middle of winter, I think, to Kentucky, and then from Kentucky to Saudi Arabia. I thought, does it occur to him at that point, like when you say that you're going to Saudi Arabia, does it occur to your dad and your mom how difficult it was to acclimate in the U.S. with everything that's going on, and then to pick up? It was stunning. I wasn't surprised to read your description of Saudi Arabia, and that you have to be covered at all times. Your mother gets frustrated because she can't drive you when you hurt your hand, and I mean, that was some of the craziness to me. It's just that the picking up and moving all the time. Why does he move all the time? That's the thing. Is it just
because Arabs are nomads, man? They can't stay in one place. No, I'm kidding. See,
I didn't want to use that stereotype because I was thinking nomads, but I thought,
if I do it.
Well, see, right. See, but if I did it, like
I'm just kidding. Do as I say. Do as I do, not as I say.
Like the guy that you dated, who you got so upset, the Arab American that you date late in the book.
The one
right,
that I went out with.
Who's stereotyping? Well, the
right.
Egyptian women are always happy, and then the Lebanese women are always with the nose jobs, and
right.
You got so upset. So the last thing I'm going to do is stereotype anybody.
Right. No, and that was that was tongue in cheek. I think somebody, a friend of mine, had read that and was like, "Well, are people going to get?" And I'm hoping that they get that it's satire. That I'm, that it's the whole idea of that stereotypes exist for a reason. but they exist from, outside of the culture, but also within the culture, like with everything, that you're seeing a lot of it's in the zeitgeist right now. So I'm hoping, I mean, Arabs haven't really been, we haven't gotten so nuanced with specific, what are they, like, different regions of the Middle East in terms of how different they are. I mean, we know obviously, but in terms of comedy, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities in there. So hopefully people, know that it's all in fun and, don't take it too seriously. But why did my dad, to answer your question, I think it was always from the point, the point that we're giving our kids a better life. And my dad is a very scientific man. So it's always, and more philosophical as well. So I think it just didn't occur to him, and because he had forged it himself, he had lived this life, he was older when I was born and all that kind of thing. And I think my mother was more, it's interesting because my mother and I paralleled each other a little bit more in that, we were both learning English at the same time. I was learning from them, which caused a lot of angst for me because, you go to school, and I think I talk about it in the book, is my parents would say iron, like for you go take your iron, pills, whatever, or, iron and ore, whatever. And I had the one line I had in school in the second grade play was they'll bring us, it was something about around Thanksgiving time or something, the settlers. And, they'll bring us iron and ore or something like that. And first of all, I couldn't say my R's. That was the other thing for some reason. I don't think it was specific to me being an immigrant, but maybe because I know a lot of my American friends couldn't say their R's, but I had to go to speech class. I would say instead of R, and that was horrific to me because my name is Ayser, and my favorite teacher's name was Mrs. Roser. So you can imagine.
That's so cruel.
Yes, it was horrible. And so, in this play, I'm, there, and the teacher's like, iron. No, see, I can't even, hold on. I don't even know the right way to say it. We bring them iron, and whatever the line was. And I would say, we bring them iron. And she's like, iron. And I'm like, and I keep repeating it. So, it's this interesting thing where, I'd go home and tell my mother that, I said it wrong. She goes, yeah, iron. So that I think caused a lot of, it's comedy now, but at the time it was horrible because you'd go to school, they'd say things, my parents would say, oh, your daddy. And, because they have, they don't say daddy. So I'd go to school and, I'd say, well, my daddy. And they're like, daddy, what's that? And so it's that kind of thing. But did I answer your question? Yeah. I tend to go off on tangents. My mother will attest.
You answered whatever I threw at you. It was fascinating. Okay. Would you say that your parents are typical as Arab American parents, or were they? And the reason I ask that is
loaded question.
you have such a developed sense of irony and this humor, and that's not necessarily a trait that I think a lot of Americans attribute.
So you're asking, well, Arabs by large they have a sense of humor. They have this, I think my parents, I definitely get my sense of humor from both of them. They have my dad's, their senses of humor. I think I actually get it more from my mother, to be honest. It's just the way, I don't even know how to explain the brand of it, but I find that a lot of Arab, again, this is generalizing, but a lot of Arabs, a lot of my parents' friends, they're hilarious. Actually, sorry, Mom, but they're more hilarious than my parents are, and I think it's also because you live in this situation where it's just horrible for the most part. Iraqis, a lot of Palestinian friends of ours that we knew from back there, and you just you either just lay down and get depressed, or that becomes your life, and you just kind of, you go with it, you roll with it. We had this friend, a good family friend of ours, and she saw some stuff, and I don't want to bring this interview down and, to a downer level, but it's a whole thing. Like you go through stuff in your life. I don't want to. Can I curse?
Of
Or not? I
course.
probably shouldn't
Absolutely.
curse. So I'm like stuff. Shit. Well, you see not a lot of stuff. Let's just keep it PG. We see a lot of stuff in your life, and then you get to it's like it becomes too much. You get fatigue. You have emotional fatigue, and a lot of this is sort of out of necessity. But Arabs are by nature very funny people, and that's the thing. People don't know that. Well, I shouldn't say that. In general, people have seen Arabs in a different light, and more and more, aside from this book, but more and more, I'm seeing a lot of Middle Eastern comics coming out, and women and men,
Hmm.
and it's cool. It's really heartening to see. It's nice to see because
I,
comedy isn't reserved for a region.
I know I've seen both. I referenced my college roommates. The first we met, and the day we met, he walked in. I had already settled into our dorm room first. It was two of us. We were
Hmm.
going to have cots right across from each other. It was a very narrow room, and he walked in the day he walked in, and the light was on, and I had some music playing, and he says, "I am Ali." I won't give his last name, just on chance that
Sure,
he's out there.
right.
And he says, "I do not like light. I do not like noise. I do not like to talk, and this is very unacceptable to me." And I went, "Wow, okay." So he's gone. Very unfunny man to live with. And then
Well, yeah.
I come back for the second semester in January, and I have another. I don't know how. And this was, by the way, this was the year that the Shah of Iran fell. That's the
Hmm.
year that I have two Iranian roommates. So we come back, and we were always getting death notes slid under the door while we were asleep and all kinds of stuff. So we come back in January, and he's gone. He's moved to another room, and I have Kayvon, who is the complete opposite of this guy. Everything with him, we laughed. It was hysterical, and I thought, okay, see, this is why you don't stereotype people,
Yeah.
because these guys are from the same country. They're complete opposites as they go. And I asked you kind of a loaded question. I said, "Are your parents, are they different than other um, Arab Americans at this point in terms of the sense of humor?" And I know the answer is, well, no. Everybody,
Mhm.
people are people. There are people who have a good developed sense of humor, and then there are people who just don't. It doesn't matter where they're from, I think.
Right. Yeah. Well, how cool is it that you got not just one, but two Iranian roommates that were so vastly different? I mean, the first guy, I hope his second room was more acceptable to him.
He roomed with a French student the next 6 months. I
Hopefully, it was
never,
very dark in there.
I bet it was. I'm sure it was, and I never heard from either of them again. I've actually tried to look up both guys,
Okay.
but with the cutoff between the United States and Iran and everything
Yeah.
else, they
Right.
I may never find out what happened to them. But
Mhm.
uh, why and what prompted you to write a memoir about your life, especially considering this is a rough time to be from that part of the world,
Mhm.
even however many years ago it was. I don't want to suggest your age, but it's been a while, and things have
Yes.
changed
Yeah.
dramatically, especially in the last two
Right.
years. What prompted you to write the book now?
Cheaper than therapy?
An acceptable answer.
No, I had been so actually. Let's see how deep do you want me to go with this answer? Don't say deep because I'll go back when I was in kindergarten. No, let me be as concise as possible because I think it's probably for the best. I had been I'm a writer as well as I've been a producer editor working in the industry here in Los Angeles, and I've been working on writing and had been writing pilots for TV and to get them they'd been optioned and things like that. And a mentor of mine who's mentioned first and foremost, Lowell Mate, he I had also been writing blog entries, and because I found once I realized the comic potential of my family, it it went from being this angsty thing that was annoying to me back in my high school years or whatever to something where I thought, okay, well, this is funny to me. Let me look at it differently, and maybe it's funny to someone else. And so I've been writing these little blog entries, and he said, why don't you, put these into a little book, vignettes, and, self-publish. And, it could be something really cool. And I thought, and I already had that on my list, and I just moved it up. And I had no idea that it would, get to a point. I was thinking I was going to self-publish it. And then all of a sudden an agent, my brilliant agent, Murray Weiss, was interested and then started shopping it around. And so I started really writing it in 2016. And this was right around the time where, Trump was, he was sort of a glimmer, but we weren't sure that, he wasn't actually a legit, candidate, I think, at that time. Or was he? I can't remember
He's
the
still
time.
not. What are you talking about?
What Good point. What I mean is, he. You got me there. Okay, that's and end of interview. Thank you very much for having me. No, I think he wasn't. Nobody believed that he was really going to be a front runner at that point, I think. And so as I was writing it, it was, there was one of the bands and then the other band. And I just started writing how I felt, how it was affecting me. And at the time, I thought, okay, this is going to be a funny thing. That's just my story. I didn't think, maybe my friends would be interested or anything like that, something beyond that. And then the more I talked to people about it, I'd say, and I'm not talking about people from within the culture, there was that, but people like you, people that, from different cultures, different areas, people who weren't my friends, I would, go out and meet people at the conventions and things. And the more I talked to people about that, they were interested. And not only that, and this was my own arrogance, is that I had spent my life feeling like I was at the wrong end of the table, basically. I always felt like an outsider. I always felt like a fish out of water. And I thought I was the only one. I thought, okay, great, other people from my culture, maybe if they're, immigrants or whatever. And I had no idea until around 2016 when I was writing it, how many people who have grown up in America who were, I use this term because it's so different for me, but like, or this type, with blonde haired and blue eyed, counterparts, because that was my ideal of what I wanted to attain back then, And it was so interesting to me. I mean, it makes sense. It's a kind of a no duh moment when I'm talking about it right now. But at the time I thought, wait, you feel awkward too? You did know, but your name is so, your name is Julie. Like, and how could you, who would have ever thought you were a weirdo, but that's the thing. And that's the beauty. And so, yes, it's a very fired up, charged up time right now in terms of immigrants and things like that. But it's such a fired up time right now in terms of being authentic, especially then when, Trump was elected in November of that year. And then everybody was just, like, oh, what do we do? This is horrible. Like, what's going to happen? And it was so divided on either side. Like, he's going to destroy the country, and what's happening to America. And I can't believe, because there was so much, it was so vocal coming out of Washington and people, the whole MAGA thing and all that, I felt like at least in my circle of, and I talk about this in the book, at least in my circle of friends, those of us that were so on the other side of it were going, well, we're going to, we're going to talk, and we're going to start, we need to be authentic and say our voices and as an antidote basically to that. And so it was a whole long process basically. I was writing it while this was happening, and it was just, I mean, I think I started writing it as, oh, this is going to be a fun story. It's a fun story. It's my story. I'm not trying to make it over important or anything like that. But it was just cool to me how I was able to connect with so many people. And I love that. Because for me, like, the biggest thing, the reason, what I love about it now is there's so many women in my situation who were immigrants, who have come from overseas, that you would think that in this day and age, things have changed and parents are more relaxed and cultures are more relaxed, but it's not necessarily the case. And if I can connect with somebody who may have been like me, scared or whatever, and just feel like nobody gets it, if I can connect with one person, then that's awesome, So,
Well, the timing seems to be perfect in that. I mean, in the last couple of years, we've had Crazy Rich Asians as the first movie to break through in that style. Fresh Off the Boat, Blackish, which I guess they're doing a third Blackish related series.
Sure.
People that there's voices, there's stories that the rest of the America and a lot of the world haven't heard, and it just seems this is perfect timing, I think, for this. I hope that you'll get the opportunity to develop it as a series or some such thing. One of the recurring challenges to you in the book from I think the age of 6 on up through adulthood is dating, and I got to tell you, sitting here across from you as such, with the video, reading the book, I kept thinking, why did this woman ever have any issues in dating? Was it really, did it come back to culture and parents? Or you've obviously had a lot of time to think about it and write about it. But I thought, this woman's charming. That was before we met in this way. But reading this book, I'm like, this woman's charming. I would have dated this woman in a heartbeat. What in the world is going on here? What do you think? What do you think explains the issues over the years that you had?
Oh my God. I don't think we have enough time in this interview. No, I mean, listen, obviously, when I was younger, it was the parents thing. It's the cultural thing. It's that you're not supposed to date for dating's sake. It's, you're supposed to date to find a mate. And in high school, I wasn't, there was no way my parents were going to let me have a boyfriend. And that's not specific to my family. It's very within the culture, but also in the religion, but also in the culture. And so it was that. It was just that, well, okay, so not being around boys in Saudi Arabia, I went to a girls' school. So there was that. So it was freeing, but at the same time, then when I came to high school and I went to a Catholic school and the kids all knew each other, imagine, it's this feeling of like being the outsider, and I so desperately wanted to fit in. So probably, I mean, I'm sure when I was younger, I was trying too hard. I thought I was awkward. I mean, I was awkward. I thought I didn't fit the type. And it's your perception plays a big part of it. So that's a big part of it. Well, that answers both of the questions, the cultural part and then the other part. And then, dude, I don't know, talk to the guys out there, man. No, but listen, you're talking to me now, having written this, and I can show you, I have like boxes and boxes of journals, actually 3 of which there was a period of my life where I burned them because I thought, no, nobody needs to see. And it wasn't even in high school. This was like 17 years ago, like not even, I was a fully formed adult and should know better.
That was fun.
But, I don't know. I think, I don't know. Maybe this book is supposed to lead me to the guy. Who knows? I don't know.
Because you I think in the book there's 2 things going on. You early on you put pressure on yourself to have a relationship with a guy, to date, even though you're not supposed to for cultural reasons, for religious reasons. Your parents don't want you dating when you're in high school, and even when you reach that point, then it kind of flips, and your parents are like, well, why haven't you found someone yet? Your aunt back in Iraq. It's like, how about this one? And I don't want to give away too much, but your aunt and your mom. Oh my God, they're hysterical. And then of course, I think a lot of it comes. There's a story you tell in the book where in high school, a boy comes to the house, mm-hmm. drops you off. You like him. He leaves, and then he comes back, right?
He does, yeah. He comes back, and because he thought it was just casual for him to just drop by and say, "Hey, let's go grab a bite," and that was a big no because it was that whole thing. I mean, my parents are very old school. Like, no, boy, he can't come to the house and expect you to be ready. How dare he? That whole thing.
But he ran into your dad, though. I mean.
Right, my dad answered the door because I was in I think I was in the shower or something, and my dad answered the door, and he's like, "Yes, can I help you? Like, what are you selling here? No, get out of here. She'll see you tomorrow." make an appointment, treat my daughter like a lady. But so let me make a distinction though that the dating was difficult, but I did have, I've had two long-term monogamous relationships. One of them almost ended in, well, in the book I call it's called Muslim marriage, or it's an engagement in this culture, but it's in our culture. If you there's like different stages of you know you court each other, then you get engaged, and then there's like the next and layer after that where it's like you're married, and then you have the actual official ceremony. So we were married in the eyes of the faith, but we didn't actually go do the whole like court thing and all that. But yeah, I think it's just, I don't think that makes me, I think it's more, that's less about me. I mean, it could be all kind of about me being an immigrant, but it's just, you grow. I mean, these two people are very much in my life. They're just not in my life in that regard. And, I wouldn't have changed it. But it was an interesting thing because the first one was the first time that I was actually on the outside. This person was Catholic, and his parents frowned on him dating me.
This was Tony.
Right. Yeah. Instead of me, when usually with my parents, it was nobody's ever good enough for my daughter. This was the case where I was like, wait, what? Hold on.
His mom, boy, I felt terrible for you with what you endured and you tried so hard. I don't want to give it away because I want people to read it, but oh my God, this woman and this holy cow, the things that she put you through.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is that it's when you're entrenched in your culture, regardless. I mean, my mother has done the same things, is that you just want the best for your child. And so you do things that, because I think it's just, you just don't know the other way, or you're not used to, or you think that if you let go of your culture, if you bend a little bit, then you're completely erasing everything. And I mean, I think that's the thing. That's the biggest takeaway, is that nobody means to be, oppositional or exclusionary. It's just, it's what and if we can have a dialogue, if we can talk about it, things like that. That's why I'm loving, like, this time right now is a very divisive time, but it's also an inclusionary time. And, it's really cool for me to see, especially looking back, where I was in the, 70s and that, or actually I shouldn't say 70s, because I think there was no awareness, but let's call it maybe the 90s after the Iraq War, when it was us against them, and them were the Iraqis and us were the Americans.
Putting aside the President of the United States for a moment, what do Americans get most wrong in thinking about or talking about Arabs these days? Where
I mean, it's. I think the thing is, the idea that women are, the comedy part, that oh wow, these Arabs can be funny, kind of thing, that they're supposed to be so serious. But I think by and large, the idea that women do wear the pants in the family, or they're the heads of households over there. My mom runs the household. I mean, my dad does his stuff, and he goes in his room with his pharmacology books, whatever. My mom pretty much raised us, and that's not unusual for the culture. And I think it's interesting because media portrays Arabs, and I'm not even talking about Arabs and Muslims. It's all like mainly the culture, but the media portrays Arabs with women, by and large, I'm generalizing, as subservient, and sort of they have to ask for permission and things like that. And unfortunately, what you're seeing, I mean, not to get too political, but all of the stuff that you're seeing right now in Saudi Arabia, this is all like the patriarchal society. The women, they do run things, and even going back as far as, the prophet, times of the prophet. So I think that's a big thing, is that people don't get that women, it's actually more women centric there, than you would think. Than you would expect, given what that you're seeing in the media. What else? I don't know. There's so many things. Is there? Like what were some of the things I should ask you? What were some of the things that you thought that may have been debunked by reading the book?
Well, I'm kind of an odd case because I've had some experience, so it wasn't. And my expectations are different, I think. But um, uh, oh, you turned the tables on me.
I didn't mean
That
to.
was good. Well, I mean, I'm kind of surprised. I'll tell you what. I was surprised after deciding to read the book and get interested in it to find that you were in Hollywood. I'm imagining there's not a lot of Arab women or men, for that matter, who are involved in the film industry, television industry.
Yeah, we're working on changing that. I mean, I've been working with MPAC, Muslim Public Affairs Council, and they're really doing a great job to bring awareness to, shows that have, Middle Eastern portrayals, Muslim portrayals. So it's changing. I mean, I think the thing is it's changing, maybe not as fast as we would like it, but it's changing to reflect what the rest of the country looks like, and that's the biggest thing. I think, it used to be that you'd watch a show and it was always set in, some, like, well, okay, like when the shows that I watched when I was a kid, it was like Eight is Enough, Sacramento or The Brady Bunch. It was set, California or like all of these, and now the shows are more reflective of other, places that you wouldn't, not just California, New York, that kind of thing. So it would make sense that it would be more reflective of the people that live, um, in various parts of the United States. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's happening. It's happening slowly. But listen, slow and steady.
Wins the race. It's a turtle in the
Exactly.
hare, right?
Right.
Um, so a lot of the things I've asked you about, we've hit on some more serious things, but really, it really is a comic memoir, and
Right.
I want to come back to that because from the very first page, frankly, from the very beginning, the preface to the book, um, it's like two books because there's what's in the big type and then the footnotes. And the footnotes are hysterical. The footnotes start from the beginning of the preface and they go all the way to the end of the book. It's basic. A lot of it is you having a conversation with your mother. Your mother is like the off-screen narrator of your life, and
She's the foil.
she's the yeah. I mean, uh, in terms of style, how did you settle on that? How did you, and when did you decide? You know what, this is working. I need more of this. Or was that an editor, or was that you? Was that?
You
I
don't
love
know. The
that.
editor was like, pull back, pull back, pull back. Thank God I had an editor who, you can imagine how it would have been. Well, I mean, look at me right now. I tend to go off on tangents. And I just thought, I'm going to write this book. This is why it was so rewarding and fun for me to write because I'm just writing it in my voice. There was no, I was writing and I thought at the least it'll be a really, elaborate journal that I can keep for myself. And I've worked out everything or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I go off on tangents, and it just as I was writing it, it became this thing where then there was this voice that was which is really your voice, right? Like the inside voice,
Hmm.
and and it kind of for me, I'm sure I'm not unique in that, but it's like you say one thing and then you're thinking, wait, should I have said that thing? And so I just thought, that's how I speak, and so I might as well just put it in there and see how it goes. And yeah, they were like, no, no, no. And there was a lot of stuff where they're like, nah, we got to put this in the footnotes. And thank God, I mean, my agent and then my brilliant editor who was just like, listen, is it okay if I take this? Like, yes, it's much better. It makes it so much more, punchy because I ramble.
I sometimes would read the footnotes before I would read above it. I found that I was so entertained by the footnotes that even reading them out of context was fun,
Yeah.
and I guess what I'm wondering too is, you reference your mother in so many footnotes. Did she actually read it before publication, or were you imagining? Because you also say at times, well, that's not exactly what was said, but that's
Right.
So
I mean, the thing is, yeah, I did a great deal of it was shared with her. either as I was reading it to her or the conversations that we've had, the Salman Rushdie conversation.
That's a good one.
Because I knew, it was coming out. I had nowhere to hide. I mean, listen, it's spending my life writing stories that were based on me, but behind the guise of a different character. That's a totally different thing because I can hide behind a character named Sarah, and it's not really me. But now it's me, and I think at first my mother's like, can't you just make up a cousin and give her the stories? And I'm like, I can't do that. That's not, no. And so that was the most terrifying thing. And I was like, oh God, what's my mom going to think? And to the point where like the dating stories, I'm like, Dad, some of these are a little bit exaggerated. So just so you know. And she was, I mean, they're both really proud and they're happy and it's really sweet. But my mom did say, she's like, some of the dating stuff, I just kind of skipped some of the chapters. So,
and we need to wrap up. Obviously, we've been talking for a while, but you have a younger brother and a even younger sister. Was assimilating easier for them than it was for you?
You would have to ask them. Those are the next books. My sister was born here. What? I don't think necessarily because of how my family is. I mean, my family, it's seemingly so, but I think we all equally assimilated and had our own difficulties at different times in our lives. Because of the way my family is very tight knit, and they're very I'd say this with love, they're all up in everybody's business. Everybody in my family is up in each other's business. And so it's, when you come, that causes a little bit of conflict. I love it. They're crazy, but I love them. But yeah, so I think that, I think my sister may have had it easier because she was the youngest in terms of fitting in, but I don't want to claim that, level of importance or whatever. I think they all, each of them had their own.
Of course, you kept your sister's life complicated by denying her an Americanized name, didn't you?
Hey, I did her a favor, man. And she would have just been one of many. But well, especially considering the origin of that story.
Yeah.
I'm not, I still stand by my I stand by my 9-year-old outrage.
We'll let people read the story. I don't want to give it away, but that was great. What you got away with too was amazing. So as we kind of wrap up, we are heading into pilot season in Hollywood, of course, every spring. And I'm wondering, are you with a studio at this point? What is this time of year for you this year?
In terms of
what are you doing?
Where I work?
Yeah,
I do some editing. I'm freelance editing now. I mean, ever since the thing happened with that company, which shall not be named, well, the Weinstein Company, I did some work with FX, and I'm working for Lantern, which is a company that acquired the Weinstein Company. I'm doing some editing for them and just freelance, and I'm teaching as well at the Loyola Marymount, and we're I'm working with some producers on developing this book as a show, hopefully. So fingers crossed.
That's what I was hoping to hear.
Yeah.
Good. I didn't want to push you there, but I was hoping that was going to be the answer.
Very leading. You're very good with your questions. You're like,
I got nothing else to do.
And I can tell by looking in your eyes, you're in the screen, if I'm nailing it or not, or if I'm veering off. It didn't stop me from veering off. I still veered off, but
you were great.
At least I'm aware.
You were great. So folks, listen, you can find Ayser Salman's book, The Wrong End of the Table, a mostly comic memoir of a Muslim Arab-American woman just trying to fit in great stores everywhere, or you can order it right now at a great price at mrmedia.com, mrmedia.com. If you are watching or listening to the show at mrmedia.com, below the video, below the audio player, you'll see the cover of the book. Click on it. It'll take you to Amazon. You can order the book. It'll order it there. It'll send a few pennies to Mr. Media. We appreciate that. You have a website. I believe it is aysersalman.com.
Correct.
Spelled, well, people can see it hopefully on the screen, but it's AYSERSALMAN.com. Are you in social media? Can people find you?
Yeah, Twitter and Instagram, same handle, Ayser Salman, and Facebook. I think you can look me up by name, but Facebook does a weird thing, like it assigns numbers or something. But it's all my name. Yeah.
Okay.
You type in my name, Salman, like Rushdie.
Really?
Ayser, but not like the computer.
Wow. Is that right? Is it the same spelling as
Yeah.
Salman Rushdie? I wonder if there's a good story in that. Never mind.
Chapter.
That's a great story. Well, Ayser Salman, it was delightful to read your book, even more delightful to meet you, and thank you so much for joining us on Mr. Media today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
Turn your back on the deceiver. It's a bad idea to believe her. A bad idea to believe her. Turn up the stereo receiver. Turn up the stereo receiver.